The Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back.
This is episode 340 of Dog and Deuce. Those are some pretty powerful words from Doc Rivers. I don't know, man. Like I kind of thought that we would be able to talk about basketball for a while, but things just keep getting crazy. Before we kind of get into everything, we want to say thank you to Blair from Jazz Fans Against Racism. He's got a fantastic YouTube page. He joined us today. We're gonna jump into the interview with him in just a few minutes. But first, James, how are you doing today? I mean, for me personally, today I've kind of been. It feels like the whole George Floyd thing again, only worse because nothing has changed. I thought that we'd kind of made a little progress, and apparently we haven't. But how are you hanging in there today?
You know, unfortunately, I wish I could say that I'm well, or that, you know, America's been dealt another blow, you know, as far as where we thought we were headed or trying to head to. And, you know, just the recent events in Kenosha, Wisconsin have made it all the more clear that we already knew there was a lot of work to do, but it seems to be no matter what, the work is going to be extraordinary. I mean, I'm kind of at a point where I don't even know what more to do. It's just so frustrating. And to hear Doc Rivers, and then I didn't have time to grab the sound, but I don't know if you heard Robert Horry. I think he was on an LA sports show, and to hear both of those guys talk about this with so much pain and emotion in their voice, honestly, it made me tear up. It's really, especially when I was listening to Robert Horry, because he was talking about how Black parents have to have a special talk with their children about how to carry themselves when they are dealing with police. And if you are a Black person in America, statistically, you have to deal with police far more often than white people. And not necessarily because you're doing anything wrong, just because of the color of your skin. We've heard a lot of statements from a lot of people who've been affected by this problem. And the fact that we're still talking about this, I don't know, man. Like, I don't even know. I feel like I'm over it. I'm so freaking frustrated and tired of this. And I'm not even a person of color. So what are they going through? Yeah. I mean, I think it really, you know, we kind of hit on this a little earlier on when we had Eric Woodyard on. I mean, that was before basketball was even being played. I can't remember the month. It might have been April or May, which seems like, again, you know, the last 6 months or so, it felt like 6 years. And like you, I mean, literally, I mean, first we need to reiterate, that's not something, the conversations you talk about, like that Robert Horry expressed, is something that is almost unimaginable to you or I, right? And to hear that there are fellow Americans who live with that burden every day just because of something as trivial to me as the color of their skin, right? Is just, it's gut-wrenching. And that's not even like a strong enough word. I don't know what is worse than gut-wrenching. And to feel sort of, you know, I mean, I said it in the Blair thing, vote, you know, help
help a person who's close to you, like Blair's trying to do with Jazz Fans Against Racism, you know, it's just another one of those days in a long list of days where we have to re-examine what we're doing, and what if we're not helping to change it, what are we doing? I mean, we're essentially not stopping it, and that's a problem too. So it really does, it's incumbent upon anyone who agrees that, you know, Black Lives Matter, or even that it's not okay to have a double statistical chance of you dying because of the color of your skin when you have police interactions. I mean, those are like the most basic things, right? People call the police because they want to feel safe. They're in a situation. So to have that juxtaposition, whether you're a person of color, that it's really hard to call the police, even if I'm unsafe in this situation, it might be more unsafe to actually call the police. And hence, you know, I mean, that's also part of the problem, I believe. And, you know, you're just left as at a loss for words and looking for how you can help in any way. Sad.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel guilty being sad about this because it doesn't directly affect me. But if you cannot listen to Doc Rivers and Robert Horry, if you can listen to them and not feel empathy and maybe understand the depth of this problem, then I have to question how much humanity you have in you. And this is not a red or blue thing. This is not this isn't even a black or white thing. This is a human being thing. If you cannot look at someone who is hurting that badly and feel empathy for them, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like it makes me lose a lot of faith in people. And I'm tired of being angry about this, and I'm tired of people dismissing this. It's disgusting. Like, I don't know how many people watched the video of Jacob Blake. That looked like a stereotypical movie mob hit. That looked like a mafia guy taking out a rival mafia guy. There was no excuse for that. They had non-lethal options. And I understand people are they're going to bring up lots of different things. Oh, he deserved it, or he was a bad guy, or whatever. The point is, he didn't deserve a death sentence for not complying with a police officer. That he did not, and especially in front of his kids. And he's still alive, thank God, but they say it's a miracle if he will ever walk again. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you can look at that, it doesn't, and say that that's okay. I mean, given what we saw of the video, then, you know, we want to live in two different places. That's the only thing I can say to that. You know, I mean, I don't think that's okay, no matter who you are. You know, I didn't, you know, there's been reports of a tussle before, this and that. Either way, at the moment in time, it felt like there were enough officers that other options could have been deployed before that one, right? And if that's the world or the country you want to live in, then and maybe that's me. I mean, that's not where I want to live, where I have to, you know, where it has to be. I mean, it's thematic. It's not a once every 10 years or whatever. I mean, obviously there's more police shootings in America than once every 10 years, but I'm saying, like, it's thematic. It's constant, you know, in the middle of protests going on, NBA courts having Black Lives Matter, numerous other Black lives have been attempted or have been taken or attempted to be taken, right? And look, that's just not where I want to reside. That's all I can say. You know, I can't make it any clearer.
I agree. I mean, people are dying, and there's still those out there. And again, it's not a red or blue thing, man. Like, just why can you not feel or try and understand that things are going on in a world that you're not in that are very harmful and detrimental for people's lives? I mean, I don't know why that's so difficult for people to understand. we should say that the Milwaukee Bucks today decided to boycott their playoff game against the Orlando Magic. And I, from what I understand, the Orlando Magic were on board for this as well, and they wanted to announce it together. But the Bucks kind of, this happened in Wisconsin, so obviously I think the Bucks may have had a little bit of responsibility there to kind of take the charge, and they did. And so then the NBA, and good on the NBA, decided to postpone the rest of the playoff games today. And as we record this is Wednesday. So I think I really want to hit that because by the time this airs, by the time this goes up on Thursday, and by the time it airs all weekend long on Cape Hatter TV and Backcountry TV, this could be old news. But
there could be no season.
There could be no season, and that's the thing is right now we're kind of up in the air. We're not quite sure. The players all had a meeting along with coaches, and to try and decide what to do. And now, right before we hit record, a report came out that said the Clippers and the Lakers voted to shut their season down, but every other team voted to keep playing. Now, here's my view on it. I love basketball. I love it. I've been enjoying these playoffs more than I think I've enjoyed any other NBA playoff, and I think part of that's just because I was so starved for sports and the Jazz were doing well that it was extra fun for me. But at the same time, I almost... And we talked to Blair about this from Jazz Fans Against Racism, and we'll get into this. And he made a good point. He said, I don't want to tell black people how they should protest or what they should do. But I personally, as much as I love basketball, want it to keep going, I would love to see them shut down the rest of the season for this one reason. If you stop these billionaires from making fistfuls of money, that's the best way to see change. And the NBA owners are all very wealthy, and if you stop them, if you prevent them, or if you cause them to lose money, it's likely to have a lot more change than a lot of people would like to say. Because some people are looking at this and they're saying, what is the boycott doing? What is it doing? And I really think that's how we have to get to the most powerful people in society. We have to have them say that they want change. What caused Dan Snyder of the Washington football team to finally, after decades of pressure, to finally change the name? Money. He was losing sponsors. So that's, to me, that's the most viable option. So I can understand why people might want to shut the season down.
Yeah, I get it. Look, and I don't tell the NBA what to do or the NBA PA what to do either. Whatever they feel comfortable with is I'll be comfortable with. Sure, I would love to see the basketball, especially with how the Jazz are playing. And there's some interesting matchups going on in the West, whether it's Dallas and the Clippers, and obviously with Dame Lillard, Portland and the Lakers have sort of cooled off. But the real question, I guess, becomes at that moment, and I think if you quit the season in a way, it would make the pressure more significant on you, right? Like if you're going to stop your job, then you're going to have to be doing something else. And it won't be able to be sort of cursory, in my opinion. Like if you're going to make that move, and I'm fine with that, but I think there would be a great deal of responsibility also that comes along with stopping something that, at least from a coronavirus perspective, right, has worked well and also given them a platform to speak. Look, and we talk about a little bit with Blair about this, like the NBA and the players really probably, I think they would be aligned on this, but I'm not sure a boycott happens if they're not in the bubble, right? Because how do you get all these people together and run it around through every team and every GM and every coach and get that kind of agreement when you're spread across the country? So in that sense, the bubble has given them a voice and this is a big voice. Boycotting games is not something that we are seeing. We've never seen. I've never seen a game boycotted. 84, like what was it? What was it? 81 of the Olympics was, but I was infants style at that point, right? And we remember Carlos and everyone in Mexico City, and we talked with Harry Edwards about that a few years ago. But it does give them a unique position where, with all the eyes on them, they can say things. And I was pretty, excited to come on and talk about how LeBron and Donovan Mitchell and all the stars have said a lot more political things and correct things, obvious things about voting and other things that really can change the world in the last 10 days. So it's a tough question, and I won't judge one way or the other. But I think, it's interesting if you leave the bubble for that reason, which again, I'm fine with. I think that puts a lot of pressure on you to go out and do something with time. I would feel that way if I voted that way. Maybe that's the best way for me to say it.
I agree. And you know what? Players could just leave. I mean, they're not forced to be there. They could leave at any time. In fact, I just barely got a notification saying that Damian Lillard is going to leave the bubble, and it's due to the leg injury. So who knows? I mean, who knows? It almost feels trivial to play games at this point, to be honest with you. It really does. But so let's jump into the interview with Blair, because he is a fantastic guy, and what he's doing with his organization, Jazz Fans Against Racism, I think is fantastic. He's not trying to shame anyone. He's not trying, he's not getting angry. He's not bullying people. He is fully on the side of education. I guess we should, I think most people who listen to the show already know, but we should mention that Jazz fans do not have a great reputation across the country. And if you had, a year ago, if you had, I've been defending Jazz fans in Jazz Nation forever, because I've been going to games for decades now. And I've never heard a racist thing said, and I've never, so I have always been on the side of Jazz fans. They're not racist, they're getting a bad rap. But in recent months, kind of had to come to some hard truths. And after Donovan's Juneteenth post, it was the first time in my entire life that I was ashamed to be a Jazz fan. It hurts me to say that, because I love this team and I always have, but I was really ashamed to be associated with some of these people. And granted, the majority were not saying these horrible things, but the minority was loud enough that it was kind of disgraceful. So Blair, rather than us sitting here and complaining about it, Blair actually decided to do something about it. And so he's doing great work. We will, like I said in the interview, we will put links to his website or to his YouTube channel and all his social media stuff over in the show notes for episode 340 at doganddeuce.com. So definitely go check that out. But let's jump into that interview with Blair. It's Dog and Deuce.
Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.
Blair from Jazz Fans Against Racism is joining us on the Dog and Deuce show. Blair, I thought it was a good day to have you on. We kind of called you up last minute, short notice, to see if we could get you on the show, but I think it's a good day for this. What's your day been like?
I ended up taking the day off. I have a day job, and when the news started coming in, I decided to take some vacation time so I could plug in and spend the whole day kind of going through Twitter and following up and tweeting and just trying to stay with the news. I edited the next video that's coming out. So it's been a super busy day.
For a little bit of introduction for anyone who might not know you, you are doing some fantastic work on your YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is 5 Minute Fights Against Racism, right? And kind of the organization you're going under is Jazz Fans Against Racism.
Yeah. I started a Twitter account and then started doing the videos. So Jazz Fans Against Racism is the kind of brand, and then the videos are 5 Minute Fights Against Racism. What's
the reaction been? I've seen a lot of positive feedback coming from people, but I'm curious to see. I can't imagine it's all positive. Let's put it that way.
It isn't all positive. It's interesting how it sort of depends on the venue. I expected to get a lot of traffic or some traffic on YouTube. I haven't got a lot there. Facebook and Instagram are where most people are watching the videos, and I've noticed a difference in how they're received on those different platforms. I can usually expect more criticism on Facebook than I'm getting on Instagram, and it's probably due to like demographics and the people that are using those two platforms. But Overall, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Most of the responses have been extremely positive.
And then before I'm going to let James jump in here, but real quick, maybe you can kind of give us a rundown of what your ultimate goal is with this project.
Well, the reason it started was back when Donovan tweeted about Juneteenth, and there was just some responses to that were really offensive and uninformed. And I noticed some of them were just naive. And I grew up in Utah, and so I'm pretty familiar with the culture here. Predominantly white place, and I've lived in predominantly black cities for short periods of time in my life, and so I've seen different contexts. And I just think Utah has a unique situation here, and so I thought there was an opening there to have some conversations with people who are generally good people that don't think of themselves as being racist, don't think of themselves as harboring racist ideas, but haven't been exposed enough to some of the problems of their perspectives. And so I thought I might as well give this a try. I might be able to reach people who are good people, who are open, but who might still harbor some racism, as I think most people do in their own ways. So the hope was to just get a conversation going and to help jazz fans in particular start to talk about these issues. I work in academia. I'm not used to, I'm not, I don't consider myself like a YouTuber. This is new territory for me, but man, I just have seen a lot of people eager to learn more and talk more, and I'm learning more as well. So that's the goal, is just to learn as I do it, and also to educate other people and get conversations going. If there's enough jazz fans that are anti-racist, we really could own the digital space. We could fill the comment sections. We could drown out what I think are some of the worst elements of our fan base and correct the reputation that jazz fans have earned of being racist.
Jazz fans do have a unique, sort of outside perspective, right? I mean, and who would have thought, I don't know how old you are, sir, but I mean, 20 years ago, if you would have asked me that we would have to have a jazz fans against racism, we would be like discussing it. It almost seems, and I was pretty young 20 years ago, but nonetheless, like, it seems so unimaginable to my, brain back then and even today. But unfortunately, the world is currently experiencing difficulties in this regard and has been for over 400 years. What sort of interactions, I mean, if you could put a number on it, like 80-20 good, bad, 50-50, like how does the breakdown sort of work for you?
It's overwhelmingly positive. I would say like 5%, 5 to 10%. Usually, the worst feedback I get is when I go out on social media myself and respond to people who I see making problematic comments. That's when I'll get most of the flack. Occasionally, I'll get negative comments on the videos themselves or on some of the posts, but I would have to say I kind of have to pursue the negativity a little bit, just in wanting to own the digital space and wanting to respond to people. I think the majority of fans just don't want to deal with it, and I kind of understand that it can be really hard to deal with the negativity, but that's where most of the negativity comes from.
And so I guess the next question is, we sort of know, I think I know your goal is to own the digital space and sort of repair, the image from the other cities of the NBA and the outside image of Utah and Utah Jazz fans. Besides owning the digital space, what else do you think, Jazz fans or followers of your page and Twitter and YouTube page can do to help this occur?
I hope that it sparks conversations with fans at home and with friends and with coworkers. I want to point out, like, affecting jazz fans' reputation is secondary to my overall goal, which really is to fight racism, like not just fight racism out there, but in myself. I was everything I was raised with. And so I would say that the more people talk to each other, the better off we're going to be. And sometimes people just don't really know what to say. It can be really awkward. So in the videos, I try to kind of strike a conversational tone so that people can use that same kind of talk when they're talking to their parents. I've received messages from people people that said, hey, you know what? My mom just asked me about the sayings on the jerseys, and I looked up your video about Mike Conley's jersey, and I showed her this video, and she didn't know any of this story. And she grew up in the 60s during the civil rights movement. And this, this really was great. Thank you for doing that. So we're seeing people or children are asking parents. Another one, the Joe Ingles video that I put out about Ally. Someone said, yeah, I was able to show this to my son and talk to him about what this meant because he asked me what Ally meant. And so, we went through this video. So I hope that it sparks conversations and hopefully leads to real action. I talked about it in the first video, the danger of slacktivism, which is that people can feel like they're doing enough just by liking a tweet or retweeting something or leaving a comment. I think doing all those things is important, but it has to go beyond that. It has to go toward supporting public policy, supporting politicians who are interested in social justice, in intervening and interrupting racism when you encounter it at work, when you encounter it, to and from work, when you encounter it in your home, and that sort of thing. So, it's hard to identify any one singular goal for the project, really.
I like the goal of not trying to repair the reputation of Jazz fans. I think that we got a long way to go if we're even going to start with that. But I do think it all begins with education. I think the way you approach this is very empathetic, and you are really you're kind of trying to show people both sides of the coin, and that, like, let's have you step out of your comfort zone for a minute. And I think that's great. Me, I've been, especially today, and obviously when the whole George Floyd thing went down, I've just been angry. And so I really appreciate, as someone, I have a very difficult time being empathetic. I appreciate that you're out there doing that hard work. I will say the video on George or Joe Ingles' jersey, I think that's a good place to start if anyone is curious, because I think it's relatable, because Joe is obviously, he's Australian, he's white, he was a little ignorant to a lot of the issues going on, and in that video you talk about that. So I guess it's not really a question, just as much as thank you for putting in this hard work. I think it's great. If you were to send someone one of your videos to kind of get them started, maybe someone who's kind of curious but still set in their ways, which video would you send them to? And I know that's a really hard question. Yeah, I know you have a lot more planned too as well, so it might be a little difficult to narrow it down. The titles of the videos really speak for what the video is directed to. And originally, what I did was I went and looked at responses to Donovan's tweet or Donovan's Instagram post, and I said, I'm going to make videos that directly address those exact things. As I went through, it became a little more complicated than that. But I think the first video really kind of lays out the approach. It serves as an introduction to the series. I probably would point people to the introduction just to let them know kind of what it's about. In terms of, what video, if I had a favorite that I personally liked a lot, I think that the one about speak up and dribble is really useful. It's pretty common to see people say, these guys are athletes. Why do we have to listen to them? Or why don't they just shut up and dribble? Why don't stick to your day job? And that kind of thing is a really common reaction. And it's a very silly reaction when you step back and think about it. And so that video just breaks down the logic, why people would say shut up and dribble, and how sports has always been political. The fact that people are just now finding that out speaks to our own ignorance. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about making these videos, is trying to take in all this information and distill it into 5-minute segments. This is a beginning. I hope people watch these and at the very least realize how much they just don't know. That's how I feel making them. So I hope people feel that way listening to them. Yeah, it's definitely been. I mean, I've found a lot of things in your videos that I had no idea about, and I didn't know. And so I'm finding, as much as I like to think of myself as an ally and someone who's above this kind of stuff, I definitely have found myself ignorant on a lot of things, and I think education is the important thing. As we record this right now, it's Wednesday night. The NBA players had a giant meeting of whether they should continue the season. So when this goes up on Thursday, we may already have an answer. I don't know. But first of all, do you think they should just cancel the season?
one of the things I really want to do is not try to second guess or dictate what Black people are going to do in response to what's going on right now. And so I have my own personal feelings about what I hope happens. Like, I'm a huge Jazz fan. Like, I'm dying. Like, I'm dying. After the Jazz lost the last game, we got to get to the next game so I can get this out of my system. I've got to get to a next game because I'm depressed, right? So as a fan, I absolutely don't want to see this thing get shut down. At the same time, I recognize what a big deal this is to the players and all of the different emotions and all the different perspectives, frankly, that we're dealing with. I don't know if either of you watched the TNT, not today, but I think it was yesterday or the day before, where basically you had Shaq, Charles Barkley, and Kenny, and they all had different perspectives about what was going on. And they all had different ideas about what ought to happen. So we're dealing with a lot of different people in the bubble talking about what the next step needs to be. I really don't know what's going to happen. I personally, as a fan, hope it continues. I do believe that the fact that they went down there is making a difference. I've seen a lot more conversations. I've had people contact me and say, you know what? I never thought about this. This made me think about this. This has made me think about this. I've changed my mind about this. So I think that they are making an impact, but ultimately they're also dealing with, there's money involved. There's sponsorships, there's contracts. It's very complicated. So I don't want to dictate. I don't want to say, here's what I think that Black people ought to do when they're facing oppression. What I want to do as a white person is like kind of sit back and like watch and see what they're doing, and then see what I can do in my own communities, especially with fellow white people, kind of trying to process it with them, and kind of working in those communities, if that makes any sense.
It is interesting, right? The whole boycott, I think I was reading that there's only been one time that an NBA game has been boycotted, and it was in like 61. And it was an exhibition, and it was Bill Russell. And I mean, to say Bill Russell's name, and I think that speaks for itself what it stood for, right? Not only from a racial inequality perspective, but also, I mean, Bill Russell is one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So I hear where you're coming from, but it does put the NBA and the players union in a very unique perspective. Like, what percentage would be high enough for them to cancel the season, right? Would it have to be unanimous? It puts everyone in a really difficult position. And I to hit on what you talked about, I mean, most NBA players should be able to survive not getting it paid, but some might not be able to.
Yeah, some, and plus all the extra staff and all the, there's so much more than just the players here in terms of that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and I think this is something you might be able to talk about. The NBA is sort of led on this, at least since returning, right? I mean, MLS
can I just say the WNBA has actually been a bigger leader on this. The NBA is late. I'm glad they're coming to the game, but like, shout out to the WNBA.
That's true. I just meant coming as far as I think they started their season a little earlier, but the WNBA, they played tonight though.
I think they stopped, didn't they? Didn't they stop before?
I don't know. I just saw they were going to play. I haven't watched.
Yeah, I think they stopped.
I heard that they were going to stop, but I'm not sure if they did or not.
I thought they were going to stop at every 7-minute mark, is what I understand.
And I think they pulled the plug altogether. To your point, like, yeah, we haven't seen this in the NBA. We have seen things come close to it. There were the riots in 1991, and I think the Jazz were even scheduled. It was like, okay, look, the Los Angeles Clippers playoff game against the Utah Jazz, I think was postponed. It was after the Rodney King. It was during the Rodney King riots, and so
they moved it completely. It was played in Anaheim. They didn't
but the league itself wasn't like, the players weren't doing this. I mean, this was around the same time like Craig Hodges of the Bulls was trying to get them to. He asked Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, let's pull the plug on this, and it wasn't time. It wasn't time.
Sorry, man.
I forgot my train of thought there. It is interesting though. Like what I'm trying to say is, given the long history, I think the NBA, and we'll go with the WNBA as well, are probably the most lenient as far as letting their players express themselves, right? So it is interesting that a sport that has less, you think of the Olympics, we think of Colin Kaepernick in the past, 5 years as sort of being out in front.
This is the anniversary of his kneeling was today.
Exactly. And so he was out in front, and no one really listened to him then, but it's taking like literally shutting down during a pandemic and then having all these tragedies happen in order to give, I guess, the space to pro athletes, even one in the most lenient league, to have this kind of voice.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because this wouldn't have been possible in the past precisely because it couldn't have been in any way marketable. I don't want to be cynical, and I think some people would say, you know, this is trendy or whatever, and I disagree with those takes. What I would say is society has changed enough to make it at least acceptable for them to complain publicly, right? We've got to a point where even the Black Lives Matter movement is supported by a plurality of Americans today. More than half of Americans think of the Black Lives Matter movement as necessary and important and aren't afraid of it and have generally positive feelings for it. At the same time, if you sat down with most people and asked them exactly what it was, especially white people, you know, they don't have very much to say about that. It's one of the purposes for these videos. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's important for the NBA to do what they're doing, because they're reaching people who aren't necessarily political nerds or, you know, following politics very closely, just kind of your average people. And now it's really affecting their lives. It's got people's attention. Sports has people's attention. And right now it's acceptable enough for them to be talking about it. So things have changed. Things have changed to that extent. Now there's plenty of stuff that still needs to change, but they've changed enough for the NBA to at least be able to talk about it.
And they are set up on the most perfect stage to do it right now. As they're in the bubble, the NBA playoffs are happening. You have MLB going on, but that's, you know, regular season baseball doesn't garner a whole lot of attention until the playoffs. NHL is just never going to be as big as the big three sports. I mean, right now, the NBA's got the world's eye. And the fact that they're in a bubble and the relationship and the close proximity of all the players together, that alone is adding more drama. And now the fact that they can actually get together, all the players can get together in one spot and have a meeting like this, you could never do that otherwise. So I think they are in a perfect situation to really grab the attention. It's kind of a mixed blessing with COVID sending them down there in the bubble. I do want to talk a little bit of playoffs with you because, I mean, that's pretty fun going up 3-1 against Denver. Obviously, they lost, and that, you know, sour taste in our mouth right now. But what was the biggest surprise seeing them in those first couple games against Denver?
For me?
Yeah.
I mean, the rise of Donovan Mitchell, we've known he's a special player, right? We've known he's a good player, but I did not know he was that player. I did not know he was a 50-point playoff kind of star. And so seeing his rise has been really, really awesome. Seeing all the things blow over about the team being broken and Rudy and Donovan's relationship. And I think they're not best buddies or anything like that, but they can play together. I think we've seen that. So those are kind of the two big narratives for me. Just seeing Donovan Mitchell just blow the doors off and also seeing the team be able to come together in, you know, after all of the difficulties they have. It's been a really fun series that frankly I wasn't quite sure we would get through. I have to admit.
Yeah, I think both James and I picked Denver, unfortunately. But I mean, I said this last week. We're witnessing Donovan Mitchell become a superstar in this league. I really believe that, and that was before he had the second 50-point game in the series. I mean, he's gone off. But you could definitely see yesterday in Game 5. His head was somewhere else. You could tell by his body language he wasn't the same fiery player, and you could tell it seemed to me, and this is an outsider perspective, he had a lot of weight on his shoulders.
Yeah, and I think Rudy was checked out too. I actually think that was Rudy's worst game, and maybe that was connected to the Defensive Player of the Year situation or whatever the reason was. But it was clear that the team was not plugged in. They credit obviously to Denver for the way that they played, but it was clear that Utah was playing with a very different energy. They looked like Denver looked in Game 2 and 3.
Yeah, they did. James, anything else you want to follow up with?
Not on the basketball. I mean, I just enjoyed this. I would encourage all Jazz fans, to check out Blair, his Twitter page and his YouTube page. And, the fight continues. We appreciate what you're doing here locally, that's really where it all has to start, is it's hard for us to affect anything in Washington other than voting. I want to make that clear, other than voting. Please vote. But
I'm a Democrat, so I can't. It doesn't make a difference here in Utah.
But it really does. You can only touch. It's really hard to touch a person 1,000 miles away, and you've touched us and many others, locally. So I appreciate, what I consider would be a really stepping out of yourself via self-reflection to help others.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're doing great stuff. The videos are fantastic. As always, we will have links to the YouTube page, all the social media stuff over at doganddeuce.com in the show notes for episode 340. Blair, man, seriously, keep up the good work. Anything we can do to help at all, ever, you shout out to anything you need at all. We're definitely here, and we want to get you back on to talk purely basketball.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So Blair,
and if you ever get a sticker made of that fist, you let me know. I'll buy 20 of them.
I know. I need to do something like that, huh?
Those are, I would, yeah. I wouldn't pay a lot because I'm not a rich man, but I'd pay you enough to get 20 of them because I like that.
I'll find a way to do some kind of merch without like any proceeds or something like that.
And I gotta say,
you just give me a holler. I'll give you the money.
It's weird. It's weird because on Zoom, which we're recording on, you can't see my TV, but I have your logo plastered on the TV. It looks great in HD on a big giant TV. So definitely, we appreciate your hard work with everything, and we'll get you back on for sure.
Cool. Appreciate it, you guys.
What do you think? Call or text the DND voicemail and text line at 801-47-SPORT and tell us what's on your mind.
Thanks to Blair for coming on. That really good stuff, man. I mean, he really seems to have, where I'm at a loss, like to me, I feel so out of control and helpless. He really seems to have kind of a handle on ways that we can move forward.
Yeah, it's not only the thought, it's the action, right? And the willingness to have the conversation, like we discussed at the end there, really, other than voting, it's really hard to affect anything that has a significant distance between you, right? Like I can't really do much for Wisconsin, but I can do everything in my power to make a change in Utah. And so that's really, in my opinion, the beauty of what Blair's doing. Not only obviously the message is great and he's great, but like the concept is a very basic one, and we talk about it a lot in other areas of our life, like eat locally or whatever, right? But really, the essence of making a change is working from yourself outwards and then hoping it builds. So the idea is beautiful and based on, and the execution is great as well. And based on what he said, the responses for the most part have been positive, which is awesome to hear. But I think you can tell in his voice, the work isn't even close to done. And in what he said, the work isn't even close to done. And I'm not sure when exactly it will be done. That's the part that taxes my small brain anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when the George Floyd thing happened, we thought that the worst thing in the world would be for the world to take note as it had, and then for it just to die off. And I applaud Blair because even before this Jacob Blake incident, he was still doing the work and he was still pushing forward. And as someone who is not a person of color living in a very predominantly white state, it would have been easy for it to fall by the wayside, but he's still pushing forward and he's doing great things. If you're looking for ways you can help, share his videos. I'm serious. Like he does such a good job of explaining what's going on. Share his videos to maybe your I don't know, your aunts, your uncles, your fathers, grandmothers, anyone who might need a little help seeing the other side of this issue. It does no good to listen to someone like me because I just get frustrated, man. I just get super angry and sad and I get a little flustered. So what Blair's doing, he said, let's take care of this. Let's do this. And so I don't mean to go on and on, but I think it's great to see someone in Jazz Nation doing this kind of work. We desperately need it. Desperately.
Yeah, I think the beauty of what he's doing is owning that there's a problem, right? And being willing to have a conversation. I, like you, oftentimes, and his response has been overwhelming. But when I get pushback on something that seems so obvious to me, it really is hard for me to sort of stay calm and stay in the moment, which he does a great job of sort of, allowing you to come to the correct conclusion via what he says, it's a gift, and we appreciate him doing it.
Absolutely. We do have about 10 minutes left. So let's talk about the playoff series. Let's end it on a more positive note. We don't want to just be too downer all the time. Obviously, bad taste in my mouth after game 5, but seeing the Jazz play that well, I didn't see it in them. I didn't see that happening at all.
Yeah, I mean, games 2, 3, and 4 was like a fantasy.
Dude, you know what it was?
Fantasy Island if you're a Jazz fan.
Well, I said this last week.
Reality.
Dude,
like they're playing so great.
I said this last week about Donovan's numbers, but it really was the whole team in games 2, 3, and 4. Video game. It was like a video game. Like it really was. They were draining. They were hitting everything. And to shoot that well from 3 is unbelievable. And to hit everything, it's just crazy, man. I was going nuts. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. So I don't know. Like, to me, I asked Blair, what surprised him most. To me, it's just how well the offense played consistently. Like, we didn't have any drop-offs until game 5. Game 5 did have some drop-offs. I don't know. Does that kind of thing turn the tide? And we may not even get the conclusion to the series, so it might be a moot point. But does that turn the tide of the series? I mean, Denver getting that win and fighting through that, does that change everything?
Look, I don't know if that changes the series if we ever see games anymore, but it definitely put a hitch in the giddy up if you're the Jazz. Look, and we hit it on it with an interview with Blair. It seemed like, at least from a Donovan perspective, his mind was somewhere else. Even in that game, he still had like 28 or 30, and it felt
30.
But that's how great he's been playing, 2 50-plus point games. And then the other one was like 47 or something, wasn't it?
It's crazy.
I can't even – it's absurd. It's absurd how he's playing. It's beautiful to see the development and really sort of the in-step motion of the offense. But those were Jazz at I don't know if it's the best they can – I think offensively that's about as close as I've seen them play to the best they're capable of. Defensively, I am a little worried at times, I'm not saying Royce has done well. Rudy's been Rudy, but the rest of the guys, there's a lot of blow-bys, and the Nuggets aren't, they're scoring kind of a lot. Jamal Murray's playing great as well, and so it's that unique thing where maybe game 5 wasn't the moment that changed the series, but if you look back in the Nuggets winning 7, I think you'll probably point to it, right?
Yeah, I think if I'm the Jazz, I think I'm happy that there's a break, not because of this reason, but I think I'm happy that there's a little distraction away from the basketball because the body language of the team was not good. I kind of disagree. I know everyone is really kind of on Rudy for his poor play in game 5. I thought he played better than people are giving him credit for. I just think Jokic was hitting everything. There were some one-footed jump shots that he was hitting. In the first quarter, he was hitting everything, but I really do think Rudy was right there defensively with him for a lot of that. Now, there's some other breakdowns. He didn't have a good game by any stretch, but I don't think it was nearly as bad as everyone's saying.
Well, he's been playing really well on the offensive end, and it didn't feel like there were as many looks as you would hope for. Maybe that's the best way to say it. But defensively, look, Jokic had 24 points in the first quarter. The fact that the game wasn't over at that moment.
Pretty incredible.
In time, when someone drops 24, the team is normally up by 15 at least. The guy didn't miss a shot. Hits a running 3-pointer from 40 feet with Rudy Gobert in his feet at the buzzer. It was insanity, and the Jazz were still right there. So the defensive effort was there. I don't know if they're getting tired. With everything that's going on socially, I also feel like Donovan his fitness has been epic through the first 5 games. He's played lots of minutes and at an insanely high level. I think he's probably played the best out of any one player through the first 5 games of their playoff series. The other person would probably be Jamal Murray. Like, those two guys have had epic games and epic head-to-head battles. And Luka Doncic's 1 game-winning shot, that was obviously a memorable and a really good game. But Donovan has really made a name. I mean, there was already a name, but he's taken his name to the next level. I'm worried he might be getting a little tired, or maybe it was everything outside the bubble that was affecting him. Look, you can never tell, I mean, yeah, I hear you. I mean, maybe it is good that they get a break because of that, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe they would be angry and play, it's hard to know. And it will be interesting to see. I mean, it would be sad if we didn't lose a playoff series and the last game we saw was a loss.
I know, dude.
That's a 2020 moment for you.
It really is.
It almost feels like it must be the case because it's like, I would like right now call and bat Vegas because it has to be, because that would be the most 2020 thing ever. We didn't lose the series. We just ended our season on a loss. What? Explain that to your grandkids in 35 years or whatever.
A 2020 moment. I like that. I think you should coin that term. I think that should go into your repertoire.
I'll get it.
I might have to steal it from you, man. A 2020 moment. Anytime anything goes wrong, even like if it's 10 years from now, that's a 2020 moment.
It is, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Like, it really is on a day like this. It is really hard to even consider basketball, I mean, and I don't think they've officially canceled tomorrow or postponed tomorrow.
I thought they did, but I could be wrong.
And
there have been so many reports.
So fast, like we were talking about with Blair. Like, I thought the NBA was playing because that was the last report. I kind of turned off the TV and just hung out with my family for the most part of the night, because it was just at some point you got to take a break, But we'll see if they play tomorrow. I mean, it's kind of you have to applaud the Milwaukee Bucks. I do want to say this: they were united. It was unanimous. Orlando didn't want the forfeit, but I think the Bucks would have taken it, right? I think they had taken a forfeit and dealt with it. So kudos to Orlando for not wanting it or denying it, whatever that procedure is. But given what the Bucks mean to the NBA and what Antetokounmpo means to the NBA and the city this year, it's really poignant that they were the ones. I mean, it was earlier in the week we heard it was going to be Toronto and Boston tomorrow that were considering this, right? And so the Bucks, I guess, I don't know how it all went down, but their willingness to do it up 3-1 on an Orlando team that's depleted, I found admirable.
Yeah, and props to George Hill. He has been very outspoken about this during this entire process, and I mean, he's not a Jazz man anymore, but he was at one point, and it's good to see. It's good to see that. I do want to say one thing. I am so damn proud of Donovan Mitchell. I really like it. It's the fact that he is not backing down amongst many detractors, and he's even going stronger. I think that's props, and I think he is one day, and I'm just going to assume he's going to be a Jazz man for life. Okay, I'm not entertaining anything else right now, but years and years and years from now, when he goes off and moves away after he's retired, I think he will have left this state better than when he found it. And even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just like he's opening a few people's eyes, that's a few people whose eyes weren't open before. I know a lot of people are vocally angry with him, but I'm just so damn proud. I don't know if I've ever been more proud of a Jazz player. I don't think I have.
Yeah. I mean, it won't be for lack of effort and willingness to put himself out if his change isn't significant, right? I mean, he's doing he's telling you how he feels, and I think he, puts his money and time where his mouth is, so to speak. I expect Donovan to not get off track on this for a long time, right? And I think the beauty of the bubble here is, like, I'm not sure. Like, I've listened to George Hill this whole time and his thinking that we shouldn't be in the bubble at all, right? And I mean, I'm not sure, given where George plays in Indiana now, right? Like, I don't
Milwaukee.
know that I would. Oh, Milwaukee. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. I'm not sure. I mean, I probably would if they got to the finals or the Eastern Conference. I don't know how big his voice would be because you're in the bubble. Everyone's getting interviewed, and it just feels like I'm getting all sides of the story. And if I had to guess, I would say a lot of people in the bubble, players, feel that way, but also feel a sense of obligation to their teammates and to their careers as well, right? So you can see the conundrum right there in how George Hill speaks. Like seems angry to be there, but he's there. And that in and of itself, I think, says so many things, right? It is truly, we're living through very unique times. Some that obviously had to happen, others that I wish didn't, like the pandemic. But man, you are getting, I mean, I wanted to call you on Monday night because, I'm still the only LeBron lover here now, as I like to say. And what he said Monday night after they just torched him, was, I was just like, wow, don't tell me he's not leading. Don't tell me he's not thinking about himself now, Al.
Well, you know what? It's funny you said that because as we've been recording, and I'll do this quickly, I got an ESPN push notification. And you know how much I love those. But this one actually, this the headline is Stephen A. Says some felt blindsided, and it says Stephen A. Smith says LeBron departed meeting, the player meeting, in part because he was frustrated about being blindsided by the Bucks' decision to protest. So that is pretty selfish if that's true.
Thanks, push notification.
Exactly.
Hey, he can feel however he wants,
But he's not the president of the NBA. They don't have to run their decision to protest by LeBron James.
I mean, I will say this, like, I think
40 seconds.
2 seconds. I mean, I think if they were going to do something like that, it would have been better to have a whole meeting so your message is unified before you did anything. I mean, so if that's what he's angry about, like, I get it, but LeBron does anything, man. He wears Adidas, and it's going to be the end of the story.
That's true. His nickname may be the king, but he's not the king of the NBA. They do not have to go through LeBron James to get approval. All right, that's going to do it. Tough show, another tough 2020 show, but we really want to say thanks to Blair. He made navigating this difficult situation much easier and much more entertaining. Definitely check out everything he's doing. Great stuff. We'll put links at the website, doganddeuce.com. We'll be back next week, hopefully talking basketball, I'm hoping. But until then, we want to hear what you think of the show and anything else going on in the world of sports or beyond. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
And we will see you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your day.